Good morning from beautiful Brisbane, Australia. How are you this morning or this evening if you're in the Northern Hemisphere? My name's Linda and welcome to Complex PTSD TV, and we're live this morning and it's only just this morning and it's absolutely freezing weather in beautiful Brisbane, Australia, but we'll warm up. Okay, today I wanted to just share some information and insight for complex PTSD and all the crisis that's happening around us, and how we can, as individuals, work our way through how to connect with each other and what's happening internally for us with all our differences. And I had a conversation with a very beautiful woman this morning, and so I want to share this information in order that you can work out what's happening for you, how you can go about connecting, and especially as we may not have had language for how to connect, what to do, and what's going to make it better for us and to build our relationships, okay? Now, that all sounds like a big impossible plan, but it's not. I promise you. I promise you that we can go through it step by step and we can begin to alleviate the fear that's happening for a lot of us around the world at the moment. Now, with all, first of all, we had the stress of COVID and all the changes. Now we've got the stress of, all the disruption in America. And to be honest, it breaks my heart. And it breaks my heart to be on the other end of the world, literally, and not know what I could and couldn't say, and not know what is the best way to go about connecting for everyone. So I've never walked, obviously, in a person of colour shoes. I'm as white, fifth generation Australian. And whilst I'm aware we have our issues in Australia, in America the issues are very different because we didn't have slavery here as they had in America's history. So it makes it different, a different set of circumstances that you're looking at in America at the moment. Now, for our people of colour, black people, and I'm not comfortable with the language because we don't use a lot of colour language in Australia. So, and for me personally, I don't go around thinking I'm white, you're black, and there's a difference. People who follow me know my heart that we're all in this together. So if I seem a bit hesitant, it's because I'm not used to talking about you're black, I'm white, and our differences. So I'm getting the hang of it. So that's my challenge. One of my challenges to be able to talk about it. Good morning, Susan. And so what I want for us to be able to do is, we all know with complex PTSD it affects us differently, and we're all aware that different people, black people have had to walk a different path. They have a different culture within an American culture, and it can be the same for all minorities, that their differences are exacerbated at this time, so they're made bigger. The fear comes, and so what do? Now, the first thing we have to look at is expectations. We have to be willing to ask ourselves, am I expecting my friends and family to reach out to me and help me deal with this fear? And then we have to have some compassion for ourselves. We have to have compassion for other people. And remember, at this point in time, we're also bringing into awareness the science of how to deal with this. Hello, beautiful Vanessa. We're, the neurology of what's happening in our brain. We're bringing into awareness emotional neglect that's happened for generations as well. So if you're a white person, and well, actually, let's just go with if you're any person, we've never had continuous generations that have developed emotional intelligence. So in our families, no matter what background you have, it's a rare thing to have had a family that's raised you to recognize your emotions, honored them, validated them, and to have conversations about them. So if you're someone that is in the thick of things in America at the moment and you're expecting that others will know how to have these deeply emotional conversations with you, perhaps sit back and reassess whether that's a very real thing that could or couldn't happen. Good morning, beautiful Charlotte, Michelle. Yeah, I can't understand, Michelle, but I empathize with you that it's very, American people see color, both blacks and whites, and it's very hard for me because I don't see it that way. And the media in Australia doesn't define someone by their color that I'm aware of. So it's not, oh, this black person did that or this white person did that. It's a man of 33 who did this, or a woman of 45 who did this. So there's not this colour distinction that is very pervasive in America. But anyhow, how to connect through the crisis. So if you're feeling full of fear, I want you to understand that, be able to give you the ability to understand this is your inner child's going, I'm full of fear, especially with complex PTSD, I'm being triggered, okay? If you watch a lot of media, you're going to be triggered and you're going to be feeling unsafe in your own home, so you've got to manage that. Now, in order to have this conversation with other people where you need support, we need to get into our adult self and say, okay, these other people, whatever colour or race they are, may not have the emotional language to support me. So then I need to be the one that takes responsibility and steps up and says, hey, this is happening in our world, our external world, and now I want to take that conversation and change it to the internal world and ask my friend, whatever colour, creed, race they are, and say, how is it impacting you? So yes, I need their support because I'm absolutely riddled with fear, but I also want to connect. I want to have a very real and raw, a very vulnerable conversation with them. Or I want to work out, can I have this vulnerable conversation with them? So we've got an adult and say, well, I need to know where they're at as well. It's not just about me. So when we do that, then you find out whether they're in touch with their emotions, whether they can express what's happening for them. And more important than anything else is whether they're willing to have the conversation, whether they're willing to be in touch with what's happening for them emotionally. So for me, my vulnerability at this point in time is, look, I know that you're in a crisis of fear, and I feel very like I don't know what to say. I don't know what I can do. But if you can tell me what I can do for you, I will step up and we'll make arrangements to make that happen. So whether you need somebody to just listen to you about how afraid you are, then you've got to get into the adult side, not the inner child side, and say, listen, this is what's happening for me, and I need you, if you could just listen. And so when I talk it out loud, I'm able to process that fear, and then I'm able to move into the thinking part of my brain as well and go, right, how can I put structure and strategies in place to manage this? And if you're like me, and this is all, I wouldn't say new, but having the conversations are new, I want to be able to be vulnerable with you and say, these conversations are new for me, but I want to have them, and I want to be able to say, well, that feels uncomfortable, but let's go there. Of course, our main priority is we want to do this with safe people, okay? We don't want to be doing this with people who don't care, with people who've got all the answers. We want to be doing this vulnerability work with people who actually have a care factor engaged, that the world isn't just about them. So, good morning, Kathy, Ali. Good. Yeah. It's great to have you here. So when I do that, when I step up and have vulnerability, and then I say, right, What can we do? And I went through a process this morning with someone and I said, all right, if you're going home and your actual place of residence is a place where you need to be aware of managing your fear, what could somebody do for you in that situation? I said, so we came up with a couple of ideas. So can you reach out to someone and say, listen, things aren't 100% for me, but can you meet me at the shops just so we can go through and I'll get my groceries and that's fine. And somebody like me would go, yes, let's plan it, let's make a time and let's get this happening. And remember, when we're dealing with more than just one person, we want to have a pre-planned schedule of, okay, this is when I'm going to need groceries, or this is when I've got an appointment. Is there someone who can come with me? Okay, so open yourself up to asking for what you need. That's of prime importance. If you don't know what you need and you can't vocalize that, how can you expect others to be able to go as an adult, say, yes, I've got time for this, no, I can't make that time, and understand that we can't go through life in fear, but we do have to, with complex PTSD, step up and change up our experiences as well. All right, so we need a good healthy dose of having a positive attitude about this, about navigating a new journey for ourselves as well. Now, if you've come from a culture where, or toxic family history, where you've had to ignore your emotions, numb them out, suppress any other way of looking at it, then you want to be able to say, look, I'm trying to learn how to put language around what's happening for me. I see a bigger picture that all these things are happening that are out of my control. But the one thing I can do is work on identifying my emotions, understanding what I'm capable of doing with where my particular mental health is at and where my physical health is at because of COVID, all right? And whether you can go into Facebook groups and be the person that listens, whether you can get on the phone to a friend and say, look, I don't have answers, and we're allowed not to have answers. These are big world problems that are going to be solved out there. But if you feel led to go out there and lead in the problem solving, go for it. But most of us with complex PTSD, we're just managing where we're going with our mental health. But when we step up for other people, we find that we are able to start having the connections that we really desire as well. So whether you go into group and just be somebody's listening ear, or you say, I'm available at this time, let's do coffee, or I'm available to help you go to an appointment or the shops, it's doing something that's functional, which will help our neurobiology as well, okay, especially if we've got intergenerational trauma. And it will also help us both together move out of the fear stage of what's happening. Because remember, together we can. And when we remember that, we go, right, two people are better than one, and we can conquer fear together as well. All right. Kathy says, I'm finding friends and family that have never felt this and can't put it into words. Absolutely. And that's what I said this morning. That's where I started off my conversation with somebody who's vulnerable. And I said, look, I literally said this, I've never had the language for this. I've never been able to say, what can I do, or where do we go from here? But I'm willing to have that conversation. So when we're willing to start having that conversation, then we become willing to say, I feel like this is all too much out of my hands, but I want to bring it back into my part of the world, just my little planet here, and say, what can I do for the people who may need a listening ear, all right? And that's how we're going to adult through this. We're going to connect through vulnerability and saying, I don't have the answers, and I literally don't have an answer. but I do have the ability to sit down and listen to how your life has been, because I've never had that life either. Okay, my life's been pretty traumatic from another perspective, but I want to sit and be with somebody and say, I can listen, I can be here, and I can try and understand what's happening for you. And we don't want to stay in that space, but I want to be able to ask smart questions too, where I can say, how can we help each other through this? How can we put language around it? How can I help you in the current state that you're in and where you've got to go and what you've got to do? All right, questions are the best. And we need to give ourselves permission that we don't have language for what's happening. If I try and talk about it, for me sometimes too, it just brings tears to my eyes, because sometimes, even though the reality is we know this happens, people are cruel around the world, it's still in my heart is like, how can you continue to do this to another person? No matter who it is or what happens, that's where I come back to. And I think, you're causing somebody else pain. Why would you want to do that? Okay? And that's right, Kathy, vulnerability helps to make us feel courageous. It actually gives us the experience of having courage, and then we build on it the more vulnerable we are. Okay? So to recap, our steps are, know that we don't have the answers and we're not supposed to, okay? Unless you're specifically called to go out in public and change the external world, for most of us, we're going to be changing it at a level that's local to us, and we're going to open up and have the real and raw, vulnerable conversation. And we're going to say, look, I don't know. I've never had these conversations before. We're going to give ourselves permission to make mistakes, maybe use the wrong language, but we're also willing to learn how to navigate it effectively, all right? And have the conversations with our friends. And no matter what side of the coin we're on, we've got to be willing to open up and have the conversation with friends, and not have the expectation that friends will come to us, because we've all been in the same emotional neglect situation for many generations, where we haven't put language around how we feel. And by that, we're going to support each other through this time. Now, if you need a really good supportive group, I'll put the group link down below so that you can jump in and have a vulnerable conversation about what's happening for you. And when you do that, ask for what you need as well. So what do you need at this time to help you reconnect into adult self, not inner child fear? And what can you do and ask for to get help with, okay? Because none of us are mind readers. We must remember this. We aren't mind readers, but we do love and care for each other. Okay, have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. And be kind, be caring, and be compassionate. I love you all heaps. Bye for now.